Life in the Middle Ages was shaped by strict rules, powerful traditions, and the authority of religion. Society believed that marriage was the only proper place for love and intimacy. Families arranged marriages, priests blessed them, and communities expected couples to follow the rules. Yet behind the stone walls of castles and the narrow streets of medieval towns, human emotions were far more complicated. Love, desire, and secret relationships existed even in a world where such feelings could be dangerous. For most people in medieval Europe, marriage was not about romance. It was about survival, alliances, and family honor. Parents often chose a husband or wife for their children, sometimes when they were still very young. Noble families arranged marriages to strengthen political power or gain land and wealth. Peasant families arranged marriages to ensure that farms and households would continue to survive. A young man and woman might stand together during their wedding ceremony, barely knowing one another. The church bells would ring, the priest would bless the union, and the community would celebrate. But behind the smiles and celebrations, many marriages were based more on duty than affection. Because of this, secret feelings sometimes grew outside the boundaries of marriage. In villages, towns, and castles, people experienced emotions that could not always be controlled by rules or traditions. Sometimes those feelings led to quiet romances that had to remain hidden from the rest of the world. In medieval towns, lovers sometimes met in secret places where they believed no one would see them. Quiet gardens near castle walls, shadowy streets after sunset, or hidden corners of the marketplace could become places where two people spoke softly, sharing moments that society would not accept. These meetings were risky. Discovery could bring shame, punishment, or even legal trouble. Religion played a powerful role in medieval life, and the church strongly condemned relationships outside marriage. Priests preached that such behavior was sinful and could threaten a person's soul. Church courts had the authority to investigate accusations of immoral behavior, and people who were found guilty could face public humiliation or harsh penalties. Yet even with these strict rules, secret relationships still existed. Human emotions were difficult to control, and medieval society was not as simple as the rules suggested. Among the nobility, another unusual form of romance developed. Historians call it courtly love. In the great halls of castles, knights and noblewomen took part in a romantic tradition that was both poetic and mysterious. A knight might devote himself to a noble lady, writing poems in her honor or performing brave deeds to win her admiration. Sometimes these women were already married to powerful lords. The knight's devotion was meant to be respectful and symbolic, but the emotions involved could still become complicated. Courtly love was celebrated in songs, poems, and stories throughout medieval Europe. Traveling musicians known as troubadours sang about brave knights and beautiful ladies, whose love could never truly be fulfilled. These romantic tales captured the imagination of medieval audiences and created a powerful image of secret devotion. However, real life was often more complex than poetry. In royal courts and noble households, powerful men sometimes kept unofficial partners known as concubines. These women were not legal wives, but they could still have close relationships with kings or nobles. Such arrangements were sometimes tolerated because of the power and wealth involved. Kings and powerful lords could often avoid the punishments that ordinary people might face. Yet these relationships could still cause scandals within royal families and noble courts. Children born from these relationships were often considered illegitimate. While some were eventually recognized or given positions in society, many faced difficulties because they were born outside of official marriage. Meanwhile, in growing medieval cities, another reality existed. Prostitution became part of urban life in many towns across Europe. City authorities sometimes allowed brothels to operate under specific rules and regulations. While the church condemned prostitution, local governments often tolerated it because they believed it helped control other social problems. These establishments existed in certain districts of medieval cities, and their presence was widely known. For many historians, this shows that medieval society contained contradictions between official moral rules and everyday reality. Even among ordinary villagers, relationships could sometimes develop before marriage. Young men and women worked together in fields, markets, and homes, and over time friendships and attractions naturally formed. In some cases, couples began living together before a formal church wedding took place. Communities sometimes accepted these relationships if the couple eventually married, but if promises were broken or if pregnancy occurred outside marriage, the situation could lead to serious consequences. Punishments for forbidden relationships could be severe. Church courts had the authority to question individuals accused of immoral behavior. People found guilty might be required to perform public acts of repentance, such as standing before the community and confessing their actions. In some cases, couples were forced to marry quickly to restore social order. In other situations, individuals faced fines, public humiliation, or exclusion from their communities. Despite these risks, secret relationships continued to exist throughout medieval history. Human emotions have always been powerful forces, and even the strict rules of medieval society could not completely control them. Stories of hidden romance, forbidden meetings, and quiet devotion reveal a more personal side of medieval life. Behind the armor of knights and the authority of kings, people experienced the same hopes, fears, and desires that humans still feel today. It is also about ordinary human experiences, relationships, emotions, and the quiet moments that shaped people's lives. Even in a time when the church and society tried to control love, the human heart remained unpredictable. Across villages, castles, and medieval cities, people still searched for connection, affection, and understanding. And in that way, the world of the Middle Ages was not so different from our own. And so when we look back at the Middle Ages, it becomes clear that history is not only about kings, battles, and castles. It is also about the quiet moments of ordinary people, the emotions they felt, the choices they made, and the secrets they sometimes carried in their hearts. Medieval society tried to control love with rules, traditions, and the authority of the church. Marriage was expected to follow strict paths, arranged by families and approved by religion. For many people, love was supposed to fit neatly inside those boundaries. But the human heart has never been so easy to control. Behind the stone walls of castles, inside candlelit houses, and along the narrow streets of medieval towns, people experienced feelings that could not always be guided by rules. They fell in love unexpectedly. They met in quiet gardens, whispered in dark corridors, and sometimes risked everything for a moment of connection. Some relationships were hidden out of fear. Some were whispered about in villages and courts. Others became stories sung by traveling musicians, turning secret emotions into legends that survived for centuries. Even when society called such love forbidden, it did not disappear. In many ways, these stories remind us that medieval people were not so different from us today. They worked, struggled, hoped for better lives, and searched for affection and understanding just like we do. Love could bring joy, but it could also bring danger. A secret meeting could lead to happiness, or to scandal and punishment. Yet despite the risks, people continued to follow their hearts. Perhaps that is one of the most fascinating truths about history. No matter how powerful the rules of society may seem, human emotions remain powerful forces. Across the centuries, from medieval villages to modern cities, the desire for connection has always been part of the human story. And while the Middle Ages may feel distant to us now, the hopes, fears, and dreams of the people who lived then are surprisingly familiar. Because in the end, the story of forbidden love in the Middle Ages is not just about the past. It is about the timeless nature of the human heart. A heart that has always searched for love, even in the most unexpected places.